In aviation, safety is absolutely everything. So what happens when that safety is called into question? Today, we're digging into the story behind a massive decision to ground an entire fleet of cargo planes, the McDonnell Douglas MD-11, all because of a tragic crash that sent shockwaves through the entire industry. Right. Let's just start with the single most shocking detail from the get-go. An engine didn't just fail, it literally detached from the wing. I mean, just think about that. The whole thing. This is an incredibly rare and truly catastrophic kind of failure, and it's really at the heart of this entire story. So, to really get the full picture, here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll start with the crash itself, then look at the FAA's huge response. We'll get to know the plane at the center of all this, the MD-11, and then dive into the investigation and, of course, the wide-ranging impacts of this event. Okay, first up, the incident that kicked this whole thing off. We're talking about a flight over Louisville, Kentucky that was supposed to be routine, but ended in absolute tragedy. You know, the whole sequence of events was just terrifyingly fast. This UPS freighter takes off, and almost right away, something goes horribly, horribly wrong. The crew reports a major mechanical failure, and just a short time after that, they lose control and the plane goes down. The official language here is really specific and tells you a lot. They said the engine and its pylon assembly. Now that's the whole structure that connects the engine to the wing. For that entire unit to just shear off, that points to a structural nightmare. This is way more severe than just an engine blowing out. And of course, the human cost was just devastating. 14 people lost their lives in the crash and the fire that followed. It's a very stark reminder of the real-world consequences that are behind all these technical reports. So in the wake of a disaster like this, the reaction from the safety authorities was, as you'd expect, immediate, and it was incredibly decisive. Let's look at how this one incident led to something almost unheard of, grounding an entire fleet of aircraft. The FAA issued what's called an Emergency Airworthiness Directive. And let's be clear, this is not a suggestion. It's a legally binding order. It means the FAA believes there's a danger out there that's so urgent it requires immediate action on every single plane of that type, no exceptions. So the bottom line is this. Every single MD-11 cargo plane in the U.S. was ordered to stop flying, period. This immediately slammed the brakes on operations for giants like UPS and FedEx, who rely on these planes. They complied, saying it was out of an abundance of caution, while they waited for mandatory safety inspections to be done. Which kind of brings us to the aircraft itself. What exactly is the MD-11, and why is it so vital to the whole cargo industry? The MD-11 is a true workhorse. It's a big, wide-body freighter built for those super long-haul routes. But here's the critical piece of the puzzle. Its age. It came out in the early 90s, and they stopped making them over 20 years ago. So why are they still flying? Well, for cargo carriers, a brand new plane costs a fortune. These older jets are paid for, and even if they burn more fuel, they get the job done. And that, right there, is why this incident is so much bigger than just one plane. It's forcing a really tough conversation across the entire aviation world about the challenges of keeping these older planes flying safely, especially when you're talking about things like metal fatigue and making sure maintenance is absolutely perfect. But of course, the most important question of all is why? Why did this happen? And that is the job of the National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB. They're the ones leading this incredibly complex investigation. Right now, the investigators are looking at three main culprits. Was it metal fatigue? Think of bending a paperclip back and forth until it just snaps. Did the structure just weaken over thousands of flights? Or was it human error, a mistake in maintenance? Or, and this is a big one, was there a fundamental design flaw that's been hiding in plain sight for decades? So, to find the answer, the NTSB is going to be incredibly methodical. They'll analyze every piece of the recovered engine and pylon. They'll comb through years of maintenance logs, not just for this plane, but for the whole fleet. And yeah, they'll even pull out the original blueprints to look for any vulnerability. Now, an event this huge, it doesn't happen in a vacuum. The impact, that ripple effect, is felt all across global supply chains. And, way more importantly, right inside the community where it happened. You really see the impact split into two very different stories. On one side, you have the logistical chaos. You're talking delivery delays, a huge strain as companies scramble to find other planes.
But on the other, much more profound side, you have a community in mourning. You have grieving families and destroyed homes and businesses.
And this quote, I mean, it just says it all, doesn't it? While the rest of the world is worried about shipping delays, a city is dealing with a real human tragedy. That's the true heart of this story. So as we start to wrap up here, we're left with this real tension. The FAA's order to ground the fleet was a powerful, necessary move to protect public safety. You can't argue with that. But it doesn't actually solve the underlying problem. It just kind of puts a pause on a much bigger, much more difficult conversation. And that leads us to the final looming question. Look, the investigation will eventually find the cause of the Louisville crash. But the answer to this question about how we manage and maintain a global fleet of aging aircraft, that's something the entire industry is going to have to wrestle with for years to come.